The 1984 Corvette that technically never existed, but somehow changed everything. We're about to blow your mind with 20 absolutely insane facts about the C4 that even hardcore Corvette fanatics have never heard before. 1. There was no 1983 Corvette. Here's something that will mess with your head. Chevrolet completely skipped the 1983 model year for the Corvette. The C3 ended in 1982, and the C4 started in 1984, leaving a mysterious gap. This wasn't some marketing gimmick or production delay. GM made the deliberate decision to skip 1983 entirely because they wanted the new generation to debut as a proper 1984 model, avoiding any confusion with late production issues and EPA certification headaches that plagued the transition. 250 1983 Corvettes were actually built, even though no 1983 Corvette was ever sold to the public. Chevrolet actually built around 250 prototype and pre-production 1,983 Corvettes for testing purposes. These cars were fully functional, complete vehicles that underwent extensive durability and performance testing. GM's plan was always to destroy these test mules once development was complete, which is standard practice in the automotive industry. However, the fact that a complete model year's worth of cars existed but were never sold makes this one of the rarest situations in automotive history. 3. 1. 1983. Corvette survived, and it's worth millions out of those 250 prototype 1983 Corvettes. Exactly one survived GM's crusher. This lone survivor is now housed in the National Corvette Museum in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and it's technically priceless. GM still owns the car and has repeatedly stated they will never sell it, despite offers reportedly reaching into the millions. The car serves as a crucial piece of Corvette history, representing the bridge between the C3 and C4 generations. Collectors consider it the holy grail of Corvette collecting. 4th, factory workers smuggled home worthless 1983 parts. When GM decided to destroy all the 1983 Corvette prototypes, factory workers were told the parts were worthless scrap. Many employees took home components like emblems, interior pieces, and even major body panels, thinking they were just interesting souvenirs from a canceled project. Today, authentic 1983 Corvette parts are worth thousands of dollars to collectors. Some workers who kept these worthless pieces unknowingly became sitting on small fortunes, with original 1983 Corvette badges selling for over $5,000 each at auction. The VIN system had to be completely redesigned. Skipping the 1983 model year created a massive headache for GM's vehicle identification number system. The VIN structure that had been used for decades suddenly had a gap that confused computer systems, insurance companies, and registration databases across the country. GM had to work with federal agencies to create new VIN coding that would prevent confusion between late 1982 C3s and early 1984 C4s. This administrative nightmare cost GM hundreds of thousands of dollars and required updating computer systems at dealerships, DMVs, and insurance companies nationwide. 6. The rear window was supposed to be removable like a Targa. The original C4 design called for a removable rear window that would work in conjunction with removable roof panels to create an almost completely open-air driving experience. Engineers spent months developing a complex mechanism that would allow the rear glass to lift out easily while maintaining structural integrity and weather sealing. However, the system proved to be an engineering nightmare, adding significant weight, cost, and complexity while creating potential leak points. The feature was scrapped late in development, but you can still see mounting points in early C4 frames where the mechanism would have attached. 7. The digital dashboard failed spectacularly in hot weather. The C4's futuristic digital instrument cluster was supposed to be the height of 1980s technology, but it had one fatal flaw: it couldn't handle heat. In hot climates, or when the car sat in direct sunlight, the LCD display would fade, flicker, or completely shut down, leaving drivers with no speedometer, fuel gauge, or warning lights. General Motors received thousands of warranty claims for dashboard failures, particularly from owners in southern states. The problem was so widespread that many dealers kept replacement digital clusters in stock specifically for this issue, making it one of the most expensive warranty problems in C4 history. 8. Early prototypes had gull-wing doors. Like a DeLorean, believe it or not, early C4 design studies included gull-wing doors that would have made the Corvette look like a DeLorean DMC-12. Engineers built several functioning prototypes with the upward opening doors, and they actually worked quite well from an engineering standpoint. However, the complex door mechanisms would have added over $3,000 to the production cost of each car, pricing the Corvette out of its target market. 9. The seats were designed by a furniture company. GM didn't trust their own interior designers with the C4's seats, so they hired Lear Siegler, a company that primarily made office furniture and airplane seats. The collaboration resulted in seats that were incredibly comfortable for long-distance driving, but looked nothing like traditional sports car buckets. The furniture company's influence is obvious when you sit in a C4. The seats feel more like high-end recliners than race-inspired buckets. 10. The pop-up headlights were almost square. In keeping with the angular geometric design theme of the 1980s, early C4 prototypes featured square pop-up headlights that looked absolutely bizarre. The rectangular headlights were supposed to match the car's sharp-edge styling and provide a more modern appearance than traditional round lights. However, aerodynamic testing showed that the square lights created significantly more drag than round ones, hurting fuel economy and top speed. GM's wind tunnel data convinced designers to stick with round pop-up headlights, making the C4 one of the last cars to feature this classic sports car element before regulations banned them. 11. The frame was built like a NASCAR race car. The C4 was the first production car to use a composite leaf spring setup, similar to what race teams were using in NASCAR and IMSA racing. Instead of traditional steel coil springs, GM developed fiberglass leaf springs that were lighter, more durable, and provided better ride quality than conventional setups. This technology was so advanced that many race teams actually studied the C4's suspension design to improve their own cars. The composite springs were manufactured using the same techniques as aircraft components, making the C4 one of the most advanced production cars of its era from a material standpoint. 12. It had an anti-theft system that disabled the fuel pump. The C4 featured one of the first electronic anti-theft systems in a production car called the Vehicle Anti-Theft System, or VATS. If someone tried to start the car with the wrong key or by hot wiring the ignition, the system would shut down the fuel pump, making the engine impossible to start. The system used a resistor pellet in the key that had to match the car's computer exactly. While revolutionary for 1984, the system became a nightmare for owners when the resistor pellets wore out or got dirty, leaving them stranded with cars that wouldn't start even with the correct key. 13. The transmission tunnel was massive for a manual that never came. The C4's interior featured an enormous transmission tunnel that took up a huge amount of cabin space, and there's a weird reason for this. GM originally planned to offer a 6-speed manual transmission in the C4, which required a much larger tunnel to accommodate the bigger gearbox. However, the 6-speed manual was delayed and didn't appear until 1989, leaving early C4s with automatic transmissions rattling around in a tunnel designed for a much larger manual gearbox. This created awkward interior proportions and reduced passenger space for no functional reason, making it one of GM's most obvious packaging mistakes. 14. The cooling system used refrigerator parts. In a bizarre cost-cutting move, GM sourced several cooling system components from their home appliance division, which manufactured refrigerators and air conditioners. The electric cooling fans, temperature sensors, and even some of the plastic cooling system hoses were literally the same parts used in GM's household appliances. While this might sound cheap, it actually worked brilliantly. The appliance parts were designed to run reliably for decades in harsh conditions. Many C4 owners report that their cooling systems are still running perfectly with original components after 40 years, proving that sometimes automotive and appliance engineering make perfect partners. 15. The exhaust note. was artificially tuned. Using acoustic engineering, GM hired acoustic engineers to design the C4's exhaust system specifically for sound quality, not just performance. The exhaust pipes, mufflers, and resonators were precisely tuned to create a specific frequency signature that would sound aggressive under acceleration, but refined at cruise. Engineers used computer modeling to design exhaust chambers that would amplify certain frequencies while dampening others, creating an artificially enhanced V8 sound. 16th, factory workers kept breaking the fiberglass body panels. When C4 production began, GM had to completely retrain their assembly line workers because fiberglass behaves totally differently than steel. Workers who had spent decades installing steel body panels kept cracking, chipping, and breaking the fiberglass components because they were using steel installation techniques. The fiberglass panels required different tools, different installation procedures, and a much gentler touch than workers were used to. 17, it was actually cheaper than the outgoing C3. Despite being dramatically more advanced than the C3 it replaced, the 1984 C4 actually had a lower base price than the final 1982 C3. GM achieved this through aggressive cost engineering and by sharing components with other GM vehicles wherever possible. The C4 used the same basic V8 engine as Chevrolet trucks, shared electrical components with Buick sedans, and even borrowed interior switches from Pontiac models. This parts-sharing strategy allowed GM to offer cutting-edge technology at a price point that was actually lower than the outdated car it replaced, making the C4 one of the best performance bargains of the 1980s. 18. GM executives drove disguised prototypes to work for months before the C4's official debut. GM executives drove heavily camouflaged prototypes to work every day as part of real-world testing. These cars were covered in bizarre body cladding and fake panels to disguise their true appearance, but employees at GM's headquarters quickly figured out what they were seeing. The executive parking lot became an unofficial car show as employees gathered to get glimpses of the future Corvette. The launch party cost more than some companies' entire R&D budgets. GM spent an absolutely insane amount of money on the C4's launch event. Over $2 million in 1983 money, which would be about $6 million today. The party featured multiple locations, celebrity appearances, and a fireworks display that could be seen from space. GM flew in automotive journalists from around the world, rented entire hotels, and created custom promotional materials that cost more than most small car companies spent on developing entire vehicles. 20. It accidentally started the SUV craze by funding GM's truck development. The C4's unexpected success generated so much profit for GM that the company used the windfall to fund development of their truck and SUV programs. The money from C4 sales directly funded the development of vehicles like the Chevrolet Tahoe, GMC Yukon, and Cadillac Escalade. In a weird twist of automotive history, the sports car that represented the pinnacle of performance driving actually provided the financial foundation for the SUV boom that would eventually kill off most sports cars. Which fact blew your mind the most? Drop a comment below and smash that subscribe button for more insane automotive secrets you never knew existed.